Hello, I'm Jerome New, and I'm shooting some footage for Life in a Day. And I'll tell you what, it's been a good day. Been out quite a bit, hanging out with some friends. We went to a car show today, watched some drift racing. Came home, I went out on my motorcycle, did a little bit of riding for a while. Had a fantastic time. We're going to go celebrate a friend of mine's birthday tonight. Going out to the club, going to do a little salsa dancing. Going to attempt to do a little salsa dancing anyways. But it'll be a new experience. It's going to be a lot of fun. So now I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to answer some questions. And basically the first question we have is, what do you love? Give that a little bit of thought, and I'll tell you what I love. I love my family very much, and I love to travel. I love new experiences. I think that's probably one of the single most important things in my life. Any kind of new experience, but particularly when it comes to travel. And that travel could be, international travel. That travel could be down the street. As long as it's something new, it's something exciting, it's something new that I have not experienced, that's the kind of thing that keeps me passionate, and I have an insatiable curiosity. And that's the kind of thing that I use to do that. That's exactly what I love. Now, what do I fear? It's a little different. The types of things that I fear, I fear for my family, all my loved ones. I care very much about them. Do not want anything horrible to happen. Sickness, injuries, whatever it might be. I have a certain fear for failure. I don't like to fail. I want to be successful in everything that I do. I want to constantly push myself forward in any way that I can. So I guess I'm fearful of that. What makes me laugh? Well, just about anything can make me laugh. I'm a very positive and optimistic individual. I feel like I spend a good portion of my day laughing at all types of things. Could be something someone said, could be something I've seen. Sometimes I'll just be walking, and if you're an innocent bystander there, you might look at me and think I was half crazy because some random thought ran through my head, and it happened to strike me as funny. It tickled my funny bone, and I spend some time laughing. It's some good things. I love to laugh. The laughing is what keeps you young, keeps me enthusiastic about life. It's a great thing. I try to laugh as much as I can whenever I can. Now, the last question that was posed was probably one of the most interesting. Is what's in your pockets? Well, let's see what's in my pockets. Got a cell phone. Feel naked without it, so it's pretty much always around. I think pretty much everybody has it. I have one more item in my pocket. This is probably one of the single most important items as far as physical things go in my life. And there is a story about this. This is my pocket watch. I'd love to say that it was handed down from generation to generation, but that's not really true. That's not what makes this special. This is something that I got myself. Back in the early 90s, when the Soviet Union was still the Soviet Union and it was beginning to collapse, probably around 1992, I took a trip, my first international trip with a group of students, and we went to the Soviet Union and spent about a month there. There were about 30 of us on the trip, and it was probably one of the single most, it was a true life experience, and it changed the way I view the world that I live in today. And it was a very powerful experience. I had never really been out of the States before. Actually, I had never been out of the States before. So this was a great opportunity for us. We flew into Helsinki, Finland, and then traveled by bus into the Soviet Union. And it was really a moment that was really awakening for me. As we traveled into the Soviet Union by bus, we got stopped by the border guard. And the first thing they did was pull out all of our suitcases, open them up, and throw them out all over the streets, and let their German shepherds and their dogs go through and check everything to make sure we weren't, transporting weapons, illegal drugs, or whatever they might fear was being brought into the country. When that happened, being 17 at the time, it actually kind of startled me. I was a little upset that they would take and flip over and throw all of my belongings out in the middle of the street. And I ran up and tried to say something, at which point their Kalashnikov rifles, their AK-47s were leveled at me. German shepherds started raising a lot of cane, and the chaperone with us grabbed me and pulled me back. And in retrospect, I guess I was relatively close to actually being shot, though I don't remember being even remotely fearful at the time. We traveled throughout the country, and the whole place was in constant turmoil. At one point when we were driving through Moscow, we came around a corner, and right as we had passed around the corner, there was a man sprawled out in the middle of the street, and they were laying a sheet over him. He had just been shot. There had been a drive-by shooting, probably by mafia, more than likely, or some type of random military faction, but it was a military man who was shot and killed in the middle of the street. There was a lot of violence. There was a chemical fire in St. Petersburg where somebody had bombed some kind of chemical plant, and we could see that from the hotel that we were staying in. At one point we were walking through the streets, and if you're familiar with the game 3-Card Monte, there was a gentleman out there playing 3-Card Monte gambling, and I guess he had ripped somebody off, or at least given the impression that he had ripped somebody off. And we had passed him by, and maybe 45 minutes to an hour later had returned, and that same man was lying on a bench, beaten within inches of his life. It was a crazy time. It was a strange place. We saw a lot of violence while we were there. But I don't want to be down on the Soviet people or the Russian people at that point, because everyone that we met was completely hospitable. They went out of their way to do everything that they could for us. We did homestays where we would go in and meet these families, and they would spend probably a month's worth of their pay on a single dinner just to make us feel at home and to make us comfortable. So they're very much like us, and it was just a powerful experience for me to go there and see that, because I had no idea what I was getting into. But just the craziness of the city around me was it was very powerful. I had dealings with the black market, which is where this actually comes from. This particular watch, I gave $10 US for this particular watch at the time. I doubt very seriously that it's anything of great value to anyone else. I doubt that it's an antique or anything of that nature. Just a plain watch made out of steel. The brand, I believe that's Marna. It's M-A-R-N-N-A. It is a Soviet-made watch. And I did look up the company once, and they no longer make this type of watch. They make standard wristwatches now. So it is, I guess eventually it will be an important item. It's something that I hope to pass down to my children and their children's children. Maybe it can stay in the family, and one day, instead of me saying that this was passed down to my grandfather, one of my grandkids will say this was passed on to him from his grandfather, with a wonderful story to go with it. But while we were there, like I said, a lot of wonderful things happened. We made a lot of wonderful experiences. Had dealings with the black market, had dealings with gypsies. At one point in a town in St. Petersburg, we actually were just out strolling around, several 17-year-old teenagers looking around, and we saw behind the building what appeared to look like an outhouse. Looked just like an outhouse. The only difference was that on the back of the outhouse it kind of slanted outwards instead of going straight down. And you might wonder, why would you go and open up the door of what could very well be an outhouse? Nobody really wants to go in there to see that, and you're right, I'm not really interested in seeing what's in an outhouse either. But we went over there and we opened up the door and looked in, and what we saw was a staircase going down. I've already told you that I have insatiable curiosity, so I had to go down the stairs. And we walked down the stairs into what turned out to be an underground bar. A very small bar, very skinny. There were probably less than 10 people in it. Had a really old pinball machine off to one side. And we strolled up to the bar and ordered some vodka. I mean, we were in Russia. That's what you're supposed to drink, right? And they had no problem serving us. Gave us straight, warm vodka in a glass. And we drank it, thought we were big time at that point. And I remember a man sitting next to me wearing a suit. I'd call it more of a cheap suit, if you will, but the one thing that stuck out to me was when his suit pulled back, he was carrying a handgun in the waist of his pants. It looked just like something out of Hollywood. It was chrome with a pearl handle on that, just like something you would see in the movies. And he was sitting right next to me with that gun on him, and he stared me down pretty much the whole time, and we had our single drink and decided it was probably a good idea that we moved on. Now, was that guy Russian mafia, or was he just or is that just how they walked around all the time? I'm not really sure, but definitely they understood what was going on. That was pretty interesting for us. Later on, when we were in Moscow, also a great story, and all of this goes into play as to why this watch is so important to me, because this is actually the symbol, the one thing that I brought back from the Soviet Union that means the most to me and really symbolizes that trip and that growing experience that I went through. But I'll tell you some more of the story. When we were in Moscow and we were traveling through Red Square, Lenin's tomb is there, and it's basically just a dark, sullen tomb, and you go in single file and walk through and you look at Lenin's body. I'm not really sure if it's still there. You know, it's been almost 20 years, not quite, so I assume it is, but who knows. And people always said that his body looked very much like it was made out of wax, and that's completely true. He does look very waxy. It's very dark in there, and he's the only thing that's lit up. And as you pass through, or as I was passing through, I got right to the very middle and was stopping to look at him, and I happened to stick my hand in my pocket to get out a piece of chewing gum. Well, to tell you how much people were on edge at that particular time, a soldier who I did not know was there at all, standing in the corner in the dark, came running up, grabbed me, threw me into the wall, and again, with the AK-47 in my face, and his partner, who apparently was in the back corner, who I had also not seen, ran up to me, and they both grabbed me, and they patted me down and realized it was chewing gum, and you know, they let me go. And actually, they did keep the rest of the pack of chewing gum, I guess, for the troubles they went through. You know, so hey, small price to pay, right? So I went ahead and saw Lenin's tomb and moved on. But it's a beautiful place. I mean, St. Basil's Cathedral there, absolutely wonderful, and just it was a lot of stuff to see. I mean, the people there were very much in need, and they would sell almost anything on the black market. Actually, in one of the hotels in Moscow, one of the maids tried to sell me her dead husband's military uniform for like $25. You could trade anything there. We brought packs of cigarettes. Not that I want to promote the nicotine, but it was something that they definitely wanted. We also brought jeans like Calvin Klein or Levi's and that kind of stuff. And that stuff was like gold. You could trade it for anything. I remember one particular funny story. One of the gentlemen who came with us brought a pair of polo jeans, and we all know the Polo brand, but they didn't know it over there in Russia, and they turned their noses up to it, and they did not want, they thought it was an inferior product and did not want to have anything to do with it. The only thing they wanted was Levi's or Calvin Klein jeans. Did not want the polo. I just thought that was interesting. It was a very powerful trip for me. We traveled throughout 5 cities. We were there for a month, stayed with a couple different families, visited schools, visited museums. And I really grew a lot while I was there. And again, I paid $10 for this watch. I bought it, in the middle of downtown Moscow from someone from the black market, and it's been one of my most prized possessions to this point in time. As the trip was progressed, we actually caught a bus. Rode out to Copenhagen, Denmark, caught a plane home, and that experience almost 18 years ago has stuck with me ever since. And that's why this is what's in my pocket. Thank you.